Hello, manic.mercurian here, and for anyone who's watching this who would like their own birth chart reading, you can email me at manic.mercurian@gmail.com, or you can check out my website. There's lots of information about the readings I offer there, and you can also purchase readings directly through there, and that would be manic.mercurian.net. Right now, I'm currently charging $30 for a birth chart reading like this one, and that's US currency. Okay, so this is Manic Mercurian with your birth chart reading. This is for Friday, January 1st, 1999 at 6:12 p.m. in Gatineau, Quebec, Canada. So this means that you have Sun in Capricorn, Moon in Cancer with Leo rising. And we can see here that the moon is basically full. You're born just, on the eve of a full moon in Cancer. Okay, so right off the bat, it's kind of interesting. On the one hand, we can look to Sun and Capricorn and kind of, look at those themes there. So definitely a more like private, kind of introverted personality. This is something that I keep seeing in many different other parts of the chart as well, and I'm sure I'm going to talk about that more later in the reading as well. But a big theme is privacy, being self-sufficient, independent, things along those lines. That's pretty typical for someone who has Sun in Capricorn. But again, this is something that we're going to see in many other parts of the chart as well. Other than that, though, let's see here. So yeah, typically Capricorns would be, hardworking, very practical. I would speculate, based on your placements, you would experience many of these things as well. But having Moon in Cancer brings a much different energy into the picture as well. This means that you would be more sentimental, more sensitive than, most Capricorn Sun individuals. You have Sun and Moon are basically almost exactly opposite one another. So you're dealing with two sides of the coin here, both sides of the spectrum. Seeming to be, you may come across as cold sometimes. That would be the Capricorn exterior, just because you know that you have to be diligent. You have to be practical. You're aware that you have to put your own immediate comfort aside in order to do what's best for the long term. Sometimes that's where that really great like work ethic of Capricorn comes in. So all those Capricornian themes you would experience, but at the same time, Moon in Cancer means that you are very emotional, very passionate. You feel what you're feeling in the moment very strongly as well. So there is a challenge there that typically, comes about from having Sun and Moon opposing like this, having to kind of juggle those two very different energies at the same time. Let's see here. Where do we want to go now? At first glance, to be totally honest, I was surprised that you were interested in astrology. Most, at least from my experience, most people with Capricorn placements, like Capricorn Sun, typically aren't so open to things like astrology. But when I noticed Mercury in Sagittarius and Moon in the 12th house, those were two big factors for me, which let me just explain what I mean by that. So Mercury in Sagittarius means that, although you have Sun in Capricorn, so you may come across like a Capricorn, very practical, very hardworking, all that good stuff. On the other hand, Mercury's in Sagittarius, so that shows that you think and communicate and obtain information a little bit more like a Sagittarius would. So this means that you're a little bit more open than, most Capricorn people would be. In other words, you have the focus of Capricorn, but you also have the openness of, indicated by Mercury in Sagittarius. In particular, people with Mercury in Sagittarius love to hear controversial ideas or, occult information or opinions that may be, like counterculture information or information that is not the mainstream, ideas that might oppose the mainstream narrative, things along those lines. So that's why I say, it would be expected for someone with Mercury and Sagittarius to be open to ideas like astrology or other things that most people might not be open to. There's definitely a curiosity and a rebelliousness that comes with that placement. And then touching on the Moon in 12th house as well, this is something I'm going to talk more about too in the like childhood and the past, things like that. We'll talk more about that in that part of the reading. But I do want to say Moon in 12th house does indicate strong intuition, strong potential for psychic ability, And it's very likely that this would have come, it may have been, I don't want to say inherited necessarily, but it may run along in your family, and specifically from the mother side of the family. Moon in 12th house Cancer, definitely a strong probability that your mother was very intuitive or had some kind of, psychic experiences, things along those lines, and you may experience something similar as well. And just in general, too, having Moon in 12th house means that you're, typically one with that placement would be very open to unusual ideas or people or experiences, things along those lines, because again, they're kind of intuitive. They have one foot in the quote unquote real world and then one foot on the, non physical. Having Moon in 12th house makes you more aware of your subconscious than other people are, and more open to seeing patterns in places that other people typically wouldn't. Another thing I find interesting is having Moon in Cancer combined with Libra Mars means that you really shy away from confrontation. Based on your chart, uh, you really would not want any kind of confrontation at all. This is also a little bit unusual for Capricorn suns. Not completely, but typically someone who has a strong Capricorn energy, they can be a little bit defensive. They don't mind, asserting themselves for sure. But having Moon in Cancer means that you also, you like to keep things within, like you know that you can't be emotionally vulnerable everywhere, that you have to keep certain things private. And then that combined with Mars and Libra means that you really, I don't know how else to say it. You shy away from confrontation. You're not a very combative person. You may not even be a very competitive person either. The way you handle confrontation is by either avoiding it or kind of talking your way out of it, rather than, going at it head on. You have kind of a more indirect way of handling confrontation or, critical situations, things like that. The Leo rising is interesting. So on the one hand, Capricorn sun in 6th house, Moon in Cancer, 12th house, even Mars in Libra. All of these placements to me indicate someone who's maybe a little bit of a loner, very private, very kind of guarded with certain information, especially, with their emotions. These show that you've learned how to take care of yourself, basically, and how to, how do I put this? Like, on the other hand, too, like you may feel kind of misunderstood, or, you may feel forced to be alone sometimes. But on the other hand, you also have learned to live that way and survive that way as well. But the Leo rising is very different energy. That's showing that you do have definitely an ability to, handle attention well, to be around others very well, to have all eyes on you. It's sort of a contradiction in your chart that, for the most part, this looks kind of out of character for you. But Leo rising is showing that you do have that ability, I think, when you need it, if that makes sense. Let's see. And I'm just kind of looking around to make sure. I think just starting on a real general level before we get into the specifics here, you do have, I would say, most of your placements in cardinal signs mostly. Capricorn, Cancer, Libra, even Aries, where your midheaven and Saturn are. To me, that's kind of what draws my focus. Although, there is Leo rising and Mercury and Sagittarius as well. But for the most part, a lot of the planets are in cardinal signs. So what that means is you're definitely meant to be a leader. You are extremely independent. You know what you want. You know how you're going to get what you want. Definitely meant to be a leader, but in a way that's very private or sometimes isolated, in a way that's truly your own path, so to speak. How else do I put that? You have the direct leadership capabilities of Capricorn and Aries in different capacities. But having Moon in Cancer with Mars in Libra shows that you also have a more indirect way of leading as well. Moon in Cancer leads through a feeling. Mars in Libra would lead through manipulation, not necessarily in a bad way, but in being aware of others and how to maneuver within the realm of the thoughts of others or the feelings of others, things of that nature. So having major placements in all four of the cardinal signs means that you have each of the four different ways of leading, sort of leading directly, leading indirectly, leading in the short term, leading in the long term. So I think early on in life, this would be extremely difficult to balance all these different energies because they do clash together. But eventually you'll learn how to kind of balance all these, and that's where things will get really interesting. You'll be able to lead in an extremely effective and extremely unique type of way. And when I say lead, this could be leading other people, but I think for you, predominantly, it's leading by example. It looks like you're going to do something completely on your own, very independent, very individualistic. And we'll talk more about that later as well. Okay, so now I get into what's usually the heaviest part of the reading, and I don't think those of you who seek readings, I don't think you mind that. This is kind of what you're looking for. But so let's talk about your past, childhood, past life themes, as well as some major challenges in this life and where you're going in this life, what you're wanting to learn or work through. Okay, first let's talk about the moon in 12th house, because we already kind of covered that a little bit. But yeah, definitely a strong potential for that, psychic ability or intuition from the mother's side. Having moon in Cancer, especially, moon can sometimes represent the mother, but especially being in Cancer, which also has to do with the mother, that's a pretty strong pattern there for sure. Okay, but specifically, having moon in the 12th house means that at a young age, you, for one reason or another, this happens in different ways, but for different people, but you felt that you couldn't express your emotions. You felt like you pretty much weren't allowed to have emotions, or they just had to be not even ignored, but you had to deny yourself from even having emotions. You had to kind of push them down into the subconscious, basically, just detach from them completely. So this is very difficult, and it makes you kind of a late bloomer in a sense, because those feelings, that emotional, that awareness of your emotions, it will come back, but it doesn't usually come back until either the late teens or the 20s. Age 18 is a major time for sure where a lot of people have a lot of growth in this area. But what happens is, you for so long you push down your own emotions and, basically dissociate them into non-existence, or at least apparent non-existence. But a little bit later on in life, they do come back up again. And then once you start becoming aware of your own feelings, for you, these will be very strong feelings that do eventually come back up. You may not be aware of them for a long time in your youth, but you will gradually become aware of them. And for most people, I think there's certain events that happen in their late teens or 20s that kind of trigger this as well, and get things moving. But once you have that awareness, though, this becomes extremely powerful, because because all those feelings for you were in your subconscious. Once you become aware of them, you have a really deep understanding of your own subconscious. And once you have a deep understanding of your own subconscious, you're also able to understand other people extremely well. So having this placement, it's definitely very challenging, especially at a young age. And it makes you not easily understood by other people. So there's this, I was going to say catch-22. I don't think that's technically correct. But there's this weird situation where, you can understand other people very well. You can see, what people are thinking and how they're feeling. But they can't really understand you. your deepest feelings are kind of hard for most people to access. Some people will be able to understand you. For example, like other people may have 12th house moon like you do, and then you'll be able to read each other, things like that, or other placements too. But for the most part, you're kind of a mystery to other people. That's where I say you have multiple placements showing that you're a very private person. Everything I just described is in combination with Capricorn Sun, which also indicates a person that's very private with their emotions. So very interesting stuff. But yeah, definitely more on the challenging side for sure. Sun in 6th house Capricorn, also challenging. Having placements in the 6th house in general, or the 12th house for that matter, are very challenging. I would say those are, that's the most challenging axis, so to speak. And since we're talking about houses, I should mention I do use equal houses. My readings aren't super strongly based off houses, but I do use equal houses if that matters to you. But yeah, Sun in 6th house, Moon in 12th house, definitely someone who's, more private, very modest, very humble, someone who thinks for themselves, very much an individual thinker, and myself personally, I find people interesting who have placements like this because they think for themselves. They usually have very kind of interesting opinions or interesting mannerisms that I don't know, that seem very unique to them, I guess. So do with that what you will, I guess. But yeah, these placements definitely very challenging for sure. Okay, but let's talk about the upbringing a little bit more here. So okay, you have South Node at 22 degrees Aquarius. Having South Node in Aquarius shows that in a past life you may have been some kind of rebel, scientist, revolutionary, something along the themes of Aquarius. You fulfilled an Aquarian role in a past life. Definitely something where you had to observe and stay very detached, rather than be subjective, rather than being passionate or having, a feeling about something or thinking, like having your own personal opinions about something. You had to be completely detached and just observe something for what it was. So, again, some kind of like scientist maybe, or something like that. I think this comes about even stronger in this chart because South Node's not just in Aquarius, it's in 7th house Aquarius. So this shows that as a child, as well as in a past life, you may have not had a strong identity because you were so focused on just observing or, listening. Maybe this was done in the name of science, or maybe it could have been for something else too. I'm not sure, but what else? Or, oftentimes there's this theme of helping society in an indirect way. So, like through a revolution, for example, or creating something, inventing something that, you wouldn't be directly like hands-on helping somebody, but you would be, helping society in some way through your creation or something like that, through something that you wrote maybe, or something like that, something that you could actually even do alone, but then could actually help other people. So I'm not sure if any of that resonates at all, but that's kind of what South Node in 7th house Aquarius indicates. So that means that coming into this life, you would embody much of that. This is strengthened or confirmed as well by your Libra IC. So both of these placements show that as a child you would be very observant. You're probably a very quiet kid. Based on these placements, you would be maybe interested in, well, you'd be very intelligent for sure. And, again, that goes hand in hand with being so observant. Like, you may have been very interested in just watching people or other children, just watching, listening, learning, figuring everything out at a very rapid pace, but in a very kind of hands-off manner for the most part. I usually, children who have IC and Libra like to, they're usually pretty quiet kids, and they like to either draw or, create something with their hands. They're very kind of like craft oriented, crafty, and studious as well. That goes in the how do I put this? The studiousness goes hand in hand with the Libra IC as well as South Node Aquarius. South Node Aquarius is typically like a prodigy type of placement, a kid who really thrives with school at a young age and things along those lines. So these placements may definitely have made you very quirky at a young age, or something along those lines. Your peers may have thought of you as like strange or eccentric, quirky, things along those lines, but you'd be extremely intelligent for sure at a young age. And yeah, you have, on the flip side, midheaven is in Aries, north node is in Leo. So both of these placements are showing that as you kind of mature and get a little bit older, you would learn to be much more outgoing and much more independent, and having, learning to have a stronger sense of self as well. But these things would take time. Starting out, I would really speculate that you'd be kind of, you'd really lack a sense of identity. It's all about, give and take. Like, you'd be extremely intelligent at, figuring out other people and learning about, complex concepts. But that would be, the cost of that would be not having a strong sense of self, I guess. At least that's how it would kind of work for you at a young age, based on your placements. But midheaven in Aries, north node in Leo, and Saturn in Aries as well. What all of these are showing is that, one of your greatest challenges will be to, be more subjective, be more passionate, have a stronger identity, know what you want personally, for yourself too. It's good to be selfish to some extent to, focus on yourself and be honest with yourself, because if you're not honest with yourself, how can you be honest with other people? If you're only focusing on what other people want all the time, it can actually be awkward for other people, because they don't know how to connect with you. There's just this kind of detached energy there, if that makes sense. Being detached, I'm sure I've already kind of explained this, but being detached has its pros and cons. Like, the pros is, it's really great for understanding complex concepts and for just observing, being objective, but the cost of that is, there's no life in it, there's no passion, so then the question becomes, what's the purpose? There has to be kind of a balance there, I guess. So this will come with time. You probably already have figured a lot of this out, but north node in Leo is saying, focus on yourself more. What do you want? What are you, or who are you? Same with Saturn and Aries is showing that this is going to be very difficult. Saturn for all of us shows an area of difficulty, particularly early in life. But for you, Saturn is in Aries, so this is a particularly challenging place to have Saturn. It's always challenging for Saturn, but especially in Aries. The reason why is because Saturn is in fall in Aries. So basically how this works is, at a young age, it's very difficult for you to have a strong sense of self and, strong self-expression, strong confidence. And much of this would be shared with some of your peers as well, who also have Saturn in Aries, since Saturn takes about 2.5 years to travel through each sign. So for you and, basically everyone about 2 years, up to 2 years younger than you as well, you'd all have Saturn in Aries. So for all of you, having this strong identity, strong ego, is challenging, and what I find is people who have Saturn in Aries are typically very hard on themselves at a young age. They have very high standards for themselves, and oftentimes they can be depressed at a young age, and especially combining this with these other placements we've talked about in your chart, I do think this would be very difficult. But with Saturn, these things take time, and what starts out as challenges eventually, become strengths for us. So for you, it may take time for sure. It usually does, but by the time you get into your late 20s and then going into your 30s and beyond, the more time passes and the more you mature, the more you will learn to kind of rise up to meet your own expectations. Um, well, pretty much just that. People with Saturn Aries, they don't know how to feel confident, how to, live up to their own expectations. But eventually you will learn to do this. And then once you get to that point, then there's this, what's typically a very strong sense of self, very strong self-expression and confidence that emerges. But you have to go through the trials and tribulations of not having that in order to understand the value of it. You have to create this for yourself. This is definitely something that no one's going to give you, and you may not even get a lot of help with. That's the challenging part, but that's also what makes you such an expert at it once you do kind of climb that mountain, so to speak. That's just how Saturn works. And Saturn in Aries in particular, where you have it, this is particularly challenging, like I mentioned, but I also believe it's particularly rewarding with time. Also, this is another placement that shows you're meant to be a leader as well. We're going to talk more about that in the career part of this reading, but yeah, it doesn't apply just to careers. It applies to everything. It applies to your reputation and how you hold yourself in public. So I'm getting a little bit sidetracked, but that's kind of playing into some of your challenges in this life, and not just challenges, but things that you're working on that you're going to develop with time. Okay, and then this fits into that larger kind of picture that I was describing, the larger umbrella of you starting out life, I think, being kind of a wallflower, but with time you will be active, you'll be vocal in your own way. This is going to be something that takes time. It's going to be something, I think I'm stealing this from an astrologer, I forget who, but they're saying, with Saturn, it's like a turkey that you're baking in the oven, and it takes the longest amount of time, but it's really good once it comes out. That's going to be a lot of really a lot of things in your life will be that way, I think. This is common for people who have strong Saturn energy, as well as strong Capricorn placements as well. So what I mean by that is life will generally get easier for you as it goes on. And also, I do think you'll tend to be more outgoing, more active, more extroverted, more of a leader in many ways. Okay, but back to talking about, I guess I was talking about challenges here. I think we mostly covered that. I do find it very interesting, though, that a lot of these challenges, the placements that I look for challenges, like Saturn, the South Node, as well as, how do I put this? Like the nodal axis, the IC midheaven axis, and Saturn are all kind of aligned in similar signs. They all point to you starting out life more as a wallflower, as an observer. Starting out life very intelligent, but maybe not knowing how to apply that intelligence. There's not a direction behind it. It's just intelligence or learning just for the sake of learning. So that's how things would start out, but all these placements are showing that over time, you'll gravitate more toward becoming more active and passionate and more of a leader, knowing how to apply this information. But the fact that all these placements suggest kind of the same thing or similar themes, to me, that suggests that it kind of intensifies the whole dynamic. So it intensifies the challenges early on, but it also intensifies the potential for you to do something very unique and very powerful, especially later in life. Not saying you can't do it now, but the more, I think this will take time, though, for sure. Okay, let's talk a little bit more about your upbringing. So, like I mentioned in the first part of this reading, you have Sun and Moon basically opposing. For most people born near a full moon like this, the Sun and the Moon are opposite. Sun can represent the father, Moon can represent the mother. they are in completely different, sides of the zodiac here. So this means that your parents, if you grew up with both your parents, they would be very different from one another. They would have very different, opinions, very different parenting styles, very different attitudes toward you, perhaps. And they, there's likely a divide between them, if that makes sense. Even in situations where, if you were to grow up with just one parent, there would likely have been a lot of contrast with that one person with you. But whatever the case was, this is generally the more difficult road to take, having the sun and the moon, kind of clashing like this. This means that as a child, you may not have always known what was expected of you, and it's like you're kind of told two different things at the same time. This is confusing for a child, but it's advantageous in the sense that, this is the dynamic that allows you to have greater empathy, as well as to hold two different ideas in your mind at the same time. So this allows you to understand other people very well. It also allows you to understand more complex concepts as well, too. So I always say this is the more challenging road to take, but it can be definitely very advantageous in multiple ways. Okay, what else can I talk about here? So so having sun in the 6th house with moon in 12th house shows that your parents may not fully understand you. It's like they, what they expected from you isn't exactly what you are. So they may not fully know you, if that makes sense. Um, you know, so overall, this, I will say this is a more difficult chart for sure. But again, like I said, things are going to get a lot easier for you with time, I think, for sure. Okay, let's move on into the more kind of occupational part of this reading. Okay, so we've already mentioned some of your strengths. Very independent for sure. Very even keel personality, I would say. Very intuitive, maybe even kind of having some psychic abilities. Very open to unusual information. So a lot of kind of general traits there. And I think especially importantly or interestingly, you have this really strong potential for, trailblazing, for setting your own path, doing something different, doing something on your own. This is common with having sun in Capricorn, but, looking at most, if not all of your other placements, they all suggest, a lot of, very strong independent qualities. Leo rising means that you can make a good first impression. You like to dive headfirst into things. Let's start something. Let's go right into it. So that can definitely be excellent for your career. But mostly for the career and reputation, we look to the midheaven and the 10th house, or also just the top of the chart in general. For you, midheaven is in Aries. So what I usually find with people who have midheaven in Aries is that they tend to be either a business owner, or if they do work for someone else, it's got to be someone that they really look up to or respect. And if you have Aries midheaven and you work for someone else, you need to have some kind of autonomy to do your own thing. Most people with midheaven and Aries, they can't work a fast food job or something else that's more menial, where you have to sometimes take disrespect from managers, or you have to do what you're told even if it doesn't make sense to you. All that kind of stuff really doesn't fly for someone with midheaven and Aries. There's a lot of confidence, independence, a lot of kind of gall there when you have that placement. Midheaven Aries means trailblazer. You blaze your own path. You aren't afraid to be outspoken or very direct, very honest, very confident in your career or in public in general as well. Saturn, depending on what house system you use, Saturn will be in the 10th house or 9th house, somewhere around there, but it's very close to the midheaven. So this means that many of your greatest challenges will be in the public sphere, maybe at work, things along those lines. Um, this also means that this general area will be harder for you early in life, but there's potential for greater success and ease later in life, especially after age 30. That's a major turning point. Um, okay, what else? Also, Saturn being at the top of the chart like this indicates, um, to me, it indicates, you will be challenged at work and in public, but that extra weight or responsibility is what's going to push you to being that much better of a leader in this kind of area. You're gonna be someone who doesn't inherit a lot of help regarding your career path. In other words, like, you're not gonna be someone who just gets super lucky and gets set up with a really awesome job, or a friend of a friend just sets you up with this great job. That's not, I'm not saying it's impossible, but that's not what I see as being likely with Saturn where it is for you. It looks like, what you do in the world, in public, at work, you're going to be a self-made person, if that makes sense. Self-made man or self-made woman. And that is more challenging, but again, there's a lot of value in that. There's integrity in it, because you're your own self-made person. It makes you that much better, especially as an authority figure, which, Saturn where it is does show that you have this potential to be an authority figure in public and at work too. Okay, so I know I kind of gave you a lot there, but basically, you're definitely meant to be a leader. But again, what I find interesting is there's a lot of indicators in your chart showing that you're a very private person, maybe kind of shy. So maybe something where you can lead indirectly, or something where you're leading in the sense that you're completely like on your own, maybe like running a business from home, for example, or something along those lines. But it's hard for me to speculate because it looks like something very unique, very personal to yourself, something that you have a lot of autonomy with. The only thing that really comes to mind is business owner, or something where you're, managing your own project. It looks like you definitely have a lot of skill and ability when it comes to being in charge. And you can even be a really great person that's like the front of a company, someone who, does the dealings, who's like meeting other people, making good first impressions, things along those lines. You can do that too based on your placements. I think you'd be really excellent at that. But still, there's this component of being very private as well. So on the one hand, I can see you being a charismatic leader of a company, but I don't see you being fulfilled with, having to talk to people all day. I think that would be draining for you. So kind of a weird, interesting combination. Very private, but I think you need to be either alone or with people very close to you for much of the time, because this is what's going to allow you to feel stable, and this is how you're going to kind of create your vision or create your ideas or goals. That's another thing too. You're likely very goal oriented. So hopefully that wasn't too vague, but that's what I kind of see for you. If you are in a position where you are working for someone else especially at a more kind of like menial job, I think that you'd be able to do that, but for you, it would be extremely important to have goals. You can do a lowly position if you know that it's part of a greater plan. Because again, you look like a very goal-oriented person and a very independent person as well. So you do have a lot of really strong ability to be a really effective authority figure, and again, to do something unique and special, something that's truly yours. Whether that be your own business, selling some kind of product on your own, or maybe operating your own branch, like working with someone else who has some kind of vision. I don't know. That's what I really kind of see for you, though, if that makes sense. Trying to think of anything else. I'm not sure how this like intuitive ability plays into it. And it may not too, but What else can I say? Oh, another thing that I find interesting: Saturn um, is in Aries. I know technically in this house system, Saturn's in the ninth house, but in many house systems, Saturn would be in the 10th house. I know I might get in trouble for kind of bending the rules here, but I kind of use the house cusps very loosely. But with if Saturn is in the 10th house, it's ruled by Mars, which is conjunct the IC. So this to me shows that you may be working from home. Um, midheaven is in Aries, which is ruled by Mars too. That's probably a more accurate one, I guess you could say. So many would say that that would show that you would be working from home, which I think would make sense with your other placements as well. Um, okay, let's talk about relationships. What kind of person would you be attracted to? What kind of person do I see you working best with in a romantic situation? And then how would I see kind of the ideal relationship working for you? So for many of these things, we look primarily to at least I look primarily to Venus, Mars, and the descendant. Venus and Mars have a lot to do with attraction, desire, romance, sexuality. Mars is more sexuality. Venus is more, your approach to relationships and romance. Um, so I think Venus is even more important than Mars. But Mars is in Libra. They both show the kind of person you'd be attracted to. So Mars is in Libra. That shows potential sexual chemistry with people who have strong Libra placements or who are like Libra. So someone who's intellectual, maybe kind of flirtatious, very, a little bit detached, a little bit brainy, intelligent, someone who analyzes things and kind of debates things. That may be attractive to you for sure, especially in a man. Venus is in Capricorn though, so this shows that the way you approach relationships is very steady. This is very kind of typical of someone who has Sun in Capricorn as well, but you have Venus in Capricorn too. So this shows that the way you approach relationships, like your idea of a romantic kind of fantasy would be growing old with someone. Like you're all about looking at toward the end game, toward the long term future. You really want to invest. Find someone you can invest in. Venus in Capricorn is a very monogamous placement. It's very focused and very loyal, very dedicated. So, the whole kind of desire is to find someone, worthy of that dedication that you can be so loyal to. Someone, who really has their shit together, who is very mature, responsible, maybe someone older than yourself or more experienced in some other way. And this person could be someone who literally has strong Capricorn placements. This would work pretty well for you, considering or depending on what else is going on in their chart, just because you have Sun in Capricorn as well. So people who have strong Capricorn placements, you'll be attracted to them, and you'll have a lot in common since you have Sun in Capricorn as well. What else? Also, having Venus in Capricorn shows that you have a very gradual, steady approach to relationships. You're probably not into really showy, grandiose displays of affection or anything like that. You're more about the everyday, more modest or humble ways of showing affection. I don't know, practical things, just showing that you're there for someone, like cooking a really healthy meal or something like that. That's going to be something. Things like that would be more of your love language. What are the love languages? I forget. Services. I think that would be one that you might relate more to. Things like that. So someone who has strong Capricorn placements is gonna understand that and relate, to many of those things as well. Also, the other Earth signs will fit into these things too. So Taurus or Virgo, they're also signs that are, they like to take things slow, very gradual, very humble, modest, not super emotional or showy. They're also very practical as well. So any of the Earth signs, I could see definitely a lot of attraction, desire, compatibility with for sure. Even friendship wise too, or other earth signs would be definitely in the cards for sure. Okay, but the one placement I look to the most for long-term compatibility would be the descendant, and for you, descendant is at 2 degrees Aquarius. So this shows that, generally speaking, the best kind of partner for you to work with, not just romantic, but also any other kind of one-on-one partnership, would be with someone who either has strong Aquarius placements or who is like Aquarius. So someone very quirky and unconventional, someone who thinks for themselves, very independent. And as I go through this kind of list of traits, I can't help but to think that this kind of describes you to some extent as well, at least judging by your placements. Um, you, although you don't have a lot of similar placements like air placements or Aquarius placements, you do kind of end up embodying some of the same themes, I think, of being, an individual thinker, very independent, things along those lines. But yeah, descent in Aquarius, you may be attracted to someone who has kind of an unconventional appearance as well. Someone who thinks outside the box, someone who's, different and maybe kind of quietly rebellious. That could be really attractive, and not just attractive, but also, this could represent someone who you can work with well in the long term. Um, let's see. Okay, and so having Mars and Libra with Aquarius descendant, both of these are air signs. So this shows that, although you generally lack air, you may be attracted to someone who has air placement. So basically what that means is, when you lack air in your chart, you tend to feel like things are very heavy, they're pressured. You tend to take things very seriously. But on the flip side, you may be attracted to someone who is very detached and really doesn't take anything too seriously. They kind of just are very, intellectual, focused on learning, kind of just light, and, you can't really pin them down. They're not overly attached to any one particular idea or emotion or anything like that. So someone with some air energy, I could definitely see earth for sure, air as well. And again, the air signs, in case I didn't list them off, would be Libra or Aquarius, especially. I would say Aquarius even more than Libra, and then Gemini to a lesser extent. To be totally honest, I don't think Gemini would really fit with the rest of your chart. You may have some interesting conversations with them, since Gemini opposes your Mercury, which is in Sagittarius. But Gemini is just so flighty, so flaky. They're over here, they're over there. They are very kind of childlike. Not in a bad way. Not like Gemini is bad, but it's just very different than how you are. It's very different than your Cancer and Capricorn placements. You would be very focused. Very steady. Gemini is gonna be sporadic. They're gonna be all over the place. I don't really see that working. Libra and Aquarius are a little bit more, I don't want to say mature necessarily. It's not like Gemini is immature. It's just that they have traits which represent more of like a childlike mentality, versus Libra or Aquarius, which are going to be more focused, a little bit more like you, I think, for sure. So definitely strong compatibility with earth signs, air signs as well, mostly Libra and Aquarius, especially Aquarius though, for sure. Okay, and then let's talk about the fire and water signs. So let's do water signs first. So you do have moon in Cancer, so this means that, although you may not come across like it to people who don't know you well, you are very sensitive. You are very emotional. You probably do like to, cuddle and be kind of touchy-feely. Again, you may not come across that way, but you do have moon in Cancer, so there's, people who have Cancer placements, they love, touching and that closeness and things like that. So you're really going to find those things with another water sign if that's what you truly, value. So definitely, with someone else who has strong Cancer placements, like Cancer Sun or Moon, you're going to connect on a deep level and understand each other well and have a lot in common. Um, Scorpio or Pisces too are similar enough to go along with that as well. That closeness, the kind of being sentimental, emotional. What else? You can find that in Scorpio or Pisces as well. It could be too much though, because yes, you do have Moon in Cancer, but then you've also got Sun in Capricorn, so that shows that you're not always that way. You could be a little bit, reserved or independent sometimes as well. So, and then especially also considering you have Venus in Capricorn, descendant in Aquarius, like we talked about. I really think you're looking for someone kind of independent and, like grown up, so to speak. Again, not like the water signs aren't grown up, but, you're looking for someone who's a little bit more detached, I think. More even serious at times, or someone who's more stern, even, dare I say. So, Scorpio can be like that sometimes, but Pisces definitely not so much. Pisces, again, is, going to be also very scattered, kind of like Gemini. So Pisces, I don't see you having a lot in common with them. I don't see that working. Maybe Scorpio or Cancer to a lesser extent. Um, or excuse me, Cancer to a higher extent. Scorpio though would be, they can be very emotionally intense, and I don't think that's something that you're looking for. Again, you're looking for someone who's a little bit more detached. I think that's what you'd best, what would come most naturally for you to work with. So maybe some Cancer placements you'd relate a lot, and can get along on that level, but it's kind of just hit and miss with the water signs, I guess you could say. Okay, and then fire signs, you don't have a lot going on with the fire signs, but you do have your ascendant there. Typically, what I say is, if you go with someone who has the same element as your ascendant, it's usually more of a friend dynamic, unless there are, other things going on in the charts. But especially someone who has strong Leo energy, you may be able to, meet very easily and connect easily. But it would be more of a friendship dynamic because, you'd both be kind of leading. Um, that kind of brings me to the other thing I see is that because you have Leo rising, to me, this indicates that you would be the leader in the relationship. You would make the first move. Being attracted to someone who is more like Aquarius, you will both be strong-willed individuals. You would be more like Leo. They would be more like Aquarius. You're both strong-willed. You're both eccentric. You're both opinionated. But at the end of the day, you are the one that kind of makes the first move, or that is the leader in the sense that you initiate. They can be a leader too in some senses, but not in the sense of making the first move. Does that make sense? So being with another person who has fire energy, especially Leo, you'll both be initiators in that sense. You'll both be kind of leaders in that sense. So you'll have a lot in common, but it's kind of like having two of the same sides of two different magnets. Like if you're both two positive sides of a magnet, then you'll have a lot in common, but you'll never kind of attract in that, more romantic fashion. It's more with someone who has air energy like Aquarius that, it would bring that opposites attract dynamic where it would be more romantic. But fire signs, I see you more as being friends, if anything. Generally not so romantic. All other things being equal. Aries in particular may be challenging for you since you have Saturn there. Really Sagittarius as well, since Pluto is there. Either of these signs can be kind of heavy for you to work with. For Sagittarius, it depends on where their placements are in Sagittarius, because depending on where the placements are in Sagittarius, they can either pick up on your Pluto or your Mercury. So some Sagittariuses will you can have really great conversations with them, and you can speak with them very easily, and you can understand each other well. But if they have placements that are close to conjoining your Pluto, then Sagittarius people could also be very intense for you as well. And then again, strong Aries energy will be challenging people who have Aries energy can be teachers for you in some way or help you learn something, but it's not going to be fun. It's going to be more challenging. So, you know, could be part of a romantic relationship, but it's definitely not the first sign I would look to. And then Leo, like we talked about, more of a friendship dynamic. Your North Node is there, so they can help you to learn and evolve as well. But generally more of a friendship dynamic than romantic. So my main takeaway from that would be the most compatibility I see would be with Capricorn and Aquarius mostly. Those two signs is what I look to. And on a more general level, Earth signs and air signs as well. Okay, so let me just kind of look around the chart and pick up on anything I kind of missed. Speaking of compatibility and relationships, you do have Neptune conjunct the descendant. This means that you may not always, well, I was going to say you may not always understand your relationships, and who does, right? Like, we all have, I think relationships can be very captivating and cause us to lose our, logic at times when we have feelings for other people in that kind of way. But for you especially, this could be a major theme that you experience. You may also be attracted to people that are almost like Pisces in a way, that are kind of dreamy and hard to figure out, people that are complex, or they may be literally, intentionally deceptive, or they could just be difficult to understand, very sensitive, kind of artistic types. That may be part of, this attraction or this dynamic as well. I don't see this as being positive or negative necessarily. It can kind of be both or either. It's just, on the one hand, this could attract you to some really healing, spiritual personalities, and this could create a kind of larger than life romantic dynamic. But on the other hand, it could also lead you to people that are deceptive or not reliable. They're kind of always fleeting, or, there's like a cloudiness, like a lack of understanding with them or in the relationship. So it can kind of go either way. But Neptune on the descendant indicates some kind of, fantasy or illusion involving relationships and specifically the people that you attract as well. Another way of saying it too is like, you may just notice that you attract people that are really obscure and weird and dreamy and creative and things like that. You may not know, like, why do I keep meeting people that are like this, but Neptune on the descendant kind of indicates a lot of that. Okay, one last little tidbit I just wanted to throw out there is you have Jupiter in 8th house Pisces. So having Jupiter in the 8th house can indicate it can kind of go either way, because on the one hand, you could get really big inheritance, really big sums of money coming from, I don't know, something to do with like taxes or inheritance, loans. You could win big, or like the lottery or something. But on the other hand, there could also be potential for large debts or large, taxes, owing a lot of money. So Jupiter in the 8th house, I always kind of say, just be careful, because you could have a lot of money coming your way, but there could be a lot of money that you may owe others as well. And it may be hard to keep track of because Jupiter's in Pisces. So just be aware of that. I think you'll be fine. Based on your other placements, it looks like you're a very generally responsible person, very practical. At least that's what I would expect. So you should be fine. I just like to point these things out so we can kind of like be aware of them, I guess. Okay, but that's pretty much what I have for your reading. So I hope you found that useful, or at the very least entertaining. And I hope this is accurate for you. But please feel free to reach out to me with any questions, or if you need me to, explain something in a different way, or if you wanted me to delve into anything further, I'd be more than happy to do so. And yeah, if you have any other feedback as well, I'd be happy to hear it. Okay, but thanks for this reading request, and I'll talk to you later.